This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
In today's top stories, the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, has chaired a meeting of the High Security Council. The international community continues to follow with grave concern the escalating situation in the Gulf and Middle East region, where military operations are continuing for the fifth consecutive day at a time when there is growing and urgent calls for the urgent resumption of negotiations. As more than 31,000 people have sought shelter in terrors in Lebanon since the Zionist attacks on the country, the Arab League has condemned the military escalation. Hello and welcome on Radio Algeria International. I'm Jamal Silmani. The President of the Republic, Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, Minister of National Defense, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has chaired a meeting of the High Security Council. A technical team from the Niger electricity company, NIGLEC, has arrived in Algiers to receive integrated training at the Sonalgas Services subsidiary. Masoud Shafi has more in this report.
The team will undergo 3 weeks of integrated training at the School of Electricity and Gas Engineering Trades under the Sonalgas Services subsidiaries in Adrar to gain the expertise needed to operate the power plants that Algeria will build in Niger, in line with the instructions of the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, to strengthen Algerian-Niger cooperation following the February visit to Algeria by Niger's President. As part of the visit, the Niger delegation held a preparatory meeting, reviewed Sonalgas Services operations, visited the control center, and joined a video conference with both companies' officials to speed up cooperation and finalize agreements. This initiative is part of the Ministry of Energy and Renewable Energies program implemented through Sonalgas to revive cooperation with NIGLEC, strengthening Niger's electricity network and transferring Algerian expertise, with a delegation of Sonalgas technical experts having traveled to Niamey to support NIGLEC technically and logistically. During this visit, a joint action plan was agreed upon, in addition to the formation of 2 teams representing the Ministry, Sonalgas and NIGLEC, to accelerate project implementation and ensure coordination among the various stakeholders.
As you followed in our top stories, the international community continues to follow with grave concern the escalating situation in the Gulf and Middle East region, where military operations are continuing for the fifth consecutive day at a time when there are growing and urgent calls for the urgent resumption of negotiations to find a solution, end the crisis and restore regional peace and security. The UN Secretary General has continued to call for de-escalation, expressing particular concern about the growing number of civilian casualties and the destruction of civilian infrastructure. His spokesperson said that the region needs most now is a solution.
I can tell you, and you will not be surprised, that the Secretary General continues to follow the situation in that region with great concern. He is particularly worried about the multiplication of new fronts. We're also witnessing an increasing number of civilian casualties and a severe humanitarian impact on the well-being of people throughout the region. In addition, the continued attacks on energy infrastructure in the Gulf can have a dramatic impact on the global economy, which is still very dependent on fossil fuel.
The UN Human Rights Chief Volker Turk said he was deeply shocked by the impact of the escalation in the Middle East on civilians and civilian infrastructure. His spokesperson, Ravina Shamdasani, said he called on all parties to exercise maximum restraint, prevent further escalation, and take all possible measures to protect civilians.
The fear, the panic, the anxiety experienced by millions of people in the Middle East and beyond is palpable and was entirely avoidable. The situation is worsening and widening by the hour, playing out our worst fears. UN Human Rights Chief Volker Turk says he is deeply shocked by the impacts of the widespread hostilities on civilians and civilian infrastructure since the conflict erupted on Saturday with Israel and the United States of America's attacks on Iran. The laws of war are crystal clear. Civilians and civilian objects are protected. All states and armed groups must abide by these laws. The High Commissioner calls on all parties to exercise maximum restraint, prevent further escalation, and take all feasible measures to protect civilians, including migrant workers, as well as critical infrastructure. Returning to the negotiating table is the one and only way to bring an end to the killing, the destruction, and the despair.
China, for its part, is calling for an immediate end to military operations and the resumption of dialogue and negotiations on the Iranian nuclear issue as soon as possible. Meanwhile, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has doubled down on his criticism of the U.S. strikes against Iran, describing the escalating Middle East conflict as a disaster. His comments come after U.S. President Donald Trump pledged to cut off trade with Madrid after Spain's government prevented 2 jointly operated bases in its territory from being used in the strikes. In a televised address today morning, Sanchez said, quote, "Very often great wars start with a chain of events spiraling out of control due to miscalculations, technical failures, and unforeseen circumstances. Therefore, we must learn from history and cannot play Russian roulette with the fate of millions." End of quote. Sanchez warned of repeating the mistakes of the past and summarized the government's position as no to war. Governments and airlines are organizing flights to repatriate travelers stranded by the war in the Middle East, which has caused the cancellation of 19,000 flights in 4 days, and where commercial aircraft began flying again in small numbers since yesterday. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees has announced that more than 31,000 people have sought shelter in centers in Lebanon since the Israeli attacks on the country. More with Masoud Sharfi.
UNHCR spokesperson in Geneva, Babar Balouch, said that estimates indicate that over 31,000 people in Lebanon have been accommodated and registered in collective shelters, adding that many others have slept in their cars, on the roadside, or remained stuck in traffic.
Heavy displacement is being reported across parts of southern Lebanon, the Bekaa and southern suburbs of Beirut, after Israel issued evacuation warnings to the residents of more than 53 Lebanese villages and intense airstrikes across all 3 parts of Lebanon. As of yesterday, the conservative estimates suggest that nearly 30,000 people were hosted and registered at collective shelters. UNHCR has since early morning mobilized its resources to be able to respond to the emerging needs in coordination with the Lebanese government, including their disaster management unit and our humanitarian partners. We are prepared to scale up assistance as needed. As you heard the call, civilians must be protected at all times. We reiterate the urgent need to protect civilians and civilian infrastructure and ensure safe access for those fleeing and facilitate safe and unhindered humanitarian access to people in need.
It is worth noting that since Monday, Israeli warplanes have carried out a series of heavy airstrikes on the southern suburbs of Beirut and scattered areas in southern Lebanon, causing widespread destruction and igniting fires at targeted sites. In this context, the Secretary General of the Arab League, Ahmed Abul Ghaith, condemned the Israeli military escalation against Lebanon, affirming that the League stands alongside the Lebanese national interests. This came during a phone call by Ahmed Abul Ghaith with the Lebanese Prime Minister Nawaf Salam, in which he condemned the Israeli escalation against Lebanon, calling the attacks a rejected attempt to exploit the situation to violate Lebanon's sovereignty and consolidate the condemned occupation, and urged all parties to strictly adhere to the ceasefire agreement signed in November 2024. The Israeli attacks on the southern suburbs of Beirut, more than 58 dead and 154 injured.
Now, in Gaza World Food Program Regional Director Mr. Samir Abdel-Jabir, speaking from Cairo, Egypt, said that the border crossings had been closed since the regional escalation, but they should now open shortly.
Gaza, we were worried because the borders to Gaza, the crossings have been closed since the escalation. We got the good news today that actually the crossings will be opened, and that is timely for us, and we need to get in aid as fast as we can. We have wheat flour that is sufficient only for 10 days and food parcels that will maintain our programs only for 2.5 weeks. So we need to make sure that there is continuous flow and scalable flow of food into the Gaza Gaza Strip. Food availability, of course, there is commercial sector that was going in, and we're trying to scale up our cash assistance in the Gaza Strip.
That was World Food Program Regional Director Samir Abdel Jabir. Now, experts from the Organization of Arab Petroleum Exporting Countries have warned of the repercussions of the military escalation in the Gulf region on the liquefied natural gas market, with expectations of prices rising to unprecedented levels. More with Masoud Sharfi.
In a report prepared by the organization's experts on distributions in LNG shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, OAPEC noted that the escalation of military activity in the Gulf since last Saturday and the resulting restrictions on tanker movement will cast a shadow over the energy market across all sources, including natural gas. OAPEC experts stated in the report that although Iran's influence on global gas trade in terms of exports is limited, it holds strategic importance due to the Strait of Hormuz, through which more than 19% of global LNG supplies pass, particularly from Qatar, the world's second largest producer and exporter with 81.3 million tons, according to the organization's 2025 estimates. Accordingly, any distribution to LNG tanker movements through the Strait of Hormuz will affect the stability of the entire global market. The report added that any distribution to LNG tanker movements through the Strait of Hormuz will affect the stability of the entire global market, noting that 83% of total export through the strait are designed for Asia, while Europe accounts for 11% and Gulf countries 6%. In this context, the organization highlighted the direct market impacts, stating that this situation will push spot prices higher in Asia, which will in turn affect the European market. The report noted that with the European stockpiles expected to reach critical levels, less than 30%, by the end of February, the situation could trigger a sharp price surge, adding that importing markets would face higher costs, not due to the value of the gas, but because of the cost of obtaining it.
Now to the African continent. The World Health Organization in Sudan has called for an end to attacks on healthcare facilities amid the ongoing conflict in several parts of the country. The UN organization stated in a post on its official or social media accounts that it had verified another attack targeting the British hospital in Al Obeid, North Kordofan state on Monday, which left 12 people injured, including 5 health workers. In this regard, the World Health Organization renewed its call to put an end to attacks targeting hospitals and healthcare facilities, while stressing the need to protect medical staff and patients. The United Nations mission in South Sudan has confirmed that attacks targeting UN peacekeeping forces may constitute a war crime following an ambush carried out by unknown armed elements against one of its convoys in the east of the country. The mission said the incident occurred as an engineering unit accompanied by a peacekeeping security team was traveling from Akobo in Jonglei to Pibor, where the convoy was stopped at an unauthorized checkpoint and came under fire, adding that peacekeepers responded in self-defense in line with their mandate and rules of engagement, with no UN personnel harmed. You're still listening to Radio Algeria International. Stay tuned.